Okay, good one here, and eventually we will like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. Comment down below. Let me know what you thought of this episode. Mandalorian review episode 4, season 2, chapter 12, The Siege. And I've got to say, before we get into spoilers and all that, this episode is the most adventurous, fun, action-packed of the entire season yet. This episode, directed by Carl Weathers, man, is awesome. In front of the camera and behind the camera. This is a badass episode. So as I've stated, this episode was directed by Carl Weathers, and it is the most action-packed episode, fun, adventurous episode of the entire season. The positives of this episode are absolutely everything. I mean, it is kind of episodic in a way, but it brings in and introduces things that tie into the overall narrative and plot moving forward as we go, and that's absolutely what we needed. Something to weave all this together in a way that makes sense, in a way that lets us know where we're headed, where we've been, where we're going. This sews a lot of things together in the Star Wars universe from past and present that they've always been kind of on the fence, walking on eggshells. Do we not, or do we address the sequels? That kind of thing. And they've also been a little bit iffy about addressing the prequels. This one, with what's revealed in here, ties into all of that. And they allude to midi-chlorians while also showing us this cloning facility where they are, in fact, trying to recreate the Empire or whatever. Maybe a Snook or something to that effect. But absolutely, it does tie into all that. So the best things about this episode, as I knew it was going to heavily involve Gina Carano, her character. I knew it was going to involve her character, Cara Dune. I knew it was going to involve Carl Weathers. It was absolutely time for them to do this because Ahsoka's going to be next week, not this week. I knew they'd have to address the broken down, rundown ship. And I really enjoyed this space western cowboy bebop thing they got going for it. But it's done some awesome character building and world building. It's established that Greef Karga and CARA DUNE have established law and order on the planet. That's pretty much the central hub for the show. Now, much like every Star Wars thing has like its central planet, one that's key to everything, whether it's the prequels, whether it's the originals, whether it's like the Knights of the Old Republic video games. They have their central hubs. So it was pretty cool, and this episode kind of gets handed off to Cara Dune as she steals the show. She steals the show. She absolutely wrecks house. There's all kinds of amazing action in here. The kind of stuff you've been waiting for all season long. Everything about this, it just feels really up there in terms of quality, and it really feels Star Wars. Like, it's got some humor and stuff in there. It's got some of the adorable stuff from Baby Yoda. It shows us some pretty cool little things like a school where the kids can educate themselves, and they have this little funny moment with cookies and Baby Yoda. There's just, this brings in a few characters back, quite a few characters back that the Mandalorian has already introduced, and including Moff Gideon. Like this episode, and the Mandalorian becomes aware that he's alive, and it really sets the stage for some rising tensions. Everything's just gonna be so much better from here on out, especially now that they have the ability to track them. You can expect there's going to be a showdown with Ahsoka Tano, that she's going to have to go on the run, go hide somewhere else or something, but I'm very curious to see how this all plays out, especially since they have the Rebel pilot and Cara Dune having this moment where they talk about Alderaan, and we learn of her history with Alderaan. There's just so many neat little things in here that was pretty cool to get. It was fun, exciting. It had those small moments of humor that it's a joyride. It really is. So the negative aspects about this, really, for me, is it's a little bit hard to believe that the Mandalorian would just be so trusting. I know he's got history with Brief Karga and Cara Dune. Um, I know he's got a well-established history on all them, but you would think that he'd want to check who's repairing his ship, vet them first. You would think that he wouldn't just be so comfortable with dropping Baby Yoda off at a school while he goes out to handle this mission that involves taking on the Empire to some extent or degree. If you know the Empire's on the planet, it kind of just goes against everything to say that he'd be so comfortable with just leaving him with this protocol droid in this classroom full of children that can't really defend themselves that great against something like remnants of the Empire. So there is stuff in there that's a bit of a stretch to just say, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Also, there's a bit of a blunder in there for Carl Weathers in his directional debut. I like him. Awesome actor. He did a great job in front of and behind the camera, but I do have some questions about who's this guy over here? Oh, you see this guy over here? Who's that guy in jeans and a t-shirt? Maybe that's a watch, too. So... Who's this mystery guy? Is it going to play into the overall narrative moving forward on the show? I'm very curious. Is this a gray Jedi? He's wearing a gray shirt. Maybe that's a gray Jedi? But no, in all seriousness, though, you can see the guy, right? That just a few negative things there. Not much, but let's go ahead and move into the overall score for this. So we'd go ahead and give this episode a 9 out of 10. It is the most action-packed, fun, adventurous episode of the entire season. It brings in all these things that are going to establish the story moving forward, drive the plot, the narrative. It did everything that other episodes failed to do. Like episode 2, it seemed like the only reason that episode exists was to I guess introduce the rebel pilots that will play a bigger role moving forward. But I'm absolutely interested in seeing where they take Cara Dune's character. We know Ahsoka Tano will be in next week's episode, or at least I assume. I've assumed that for a while now, and that I'm drawing my conclusions there. So I expect the next episode to be just as huge as this. It's going to be pretty damn amazing. This episode was great. Cara Dune was absolutely stunning in all these action-packed scenes. It felt really like Star Wars, but it felt very original in its own right. The great little crash with the scout trooper on the speeder bike. There was some really cool things in there. Really cool things in there. I really enjoyed this episode. 9 out of 10. Solid. Despite that blunder, Carl Weathers did an absolutely great job. And I want to hear your thoughts and opinions below. What you thought of this episode. What you think of it alluding to having ties to Rise of the Skywalker with the whole cloning stuff and the Bacta tanks and alluding to the prequel mythology that introduced the midichlorians. But yes, you heard them there. They didn't exactly want to say it, but they said it without saying it too much. It's just little interesting things in here. And now we've established that the Republic needs allies out here, that there's something big happening. We're going to see all this going down moving forward as Mandalorian is establishing this list of allies, this frontline it's going to be awesome. It's going to be amazing. He's got all these different people to team up with. And I'm hoping for a big showdown with Moff Gideon and everybody that the Mandalorian has been on good terms with, has allied himself with. I'm hoping for some kind of big showdown. And maybe even getting Boba Fett in the mix to team up with the Mandalorian. That would be absolutely awesome. So, let me know your thoughts and opinions. Big good one here. Eventually we will. Stay awesome. Rock on.